We know what the problems are in this country. People know that you have to invest in cities. We're waiting for somebody to actually say it. We're waiting for somebody to actually have the guts to come out and do it. The three candidates that are running for president now are all extremely talented and are very bright people. But there isn't one of them who's really stepping away from the crowd to say, hey, we should go in this direction and we should do it. I'm a supporter of Senator Clinton. I do believe she's the best person who'll be able to handle that. But I really think if someone wanted to step away from the crowd, address the real problems, and people will look at it and say, okay, now I get it. We don't have a passionate voice for cities on a national level. I believe that what you see on the presidential campaign and their focus on the rural community is that it's almost a hangover from the Reagan Revolution. It's let's not raise any taxes. In fact, let's reduce taxes. Now, what we find when we do that is that we don't have enough money to provide the services we're supposed to provide. Katrina is a perfect example of that. The failure of Katrina is not the failure of what happened after the dikes broke. It was that we never built new levees, that we made a choice. We said we didn't have enough money to fix the levees. If they did that, they wouldn't have had the problems they had today. The reason they didn't have any money is because they decided to cut taxes. Taxes, I will make this argument all the time, is the best investment because it does improve the value of your home. For most people, that's their only asset they have, for which grows and gives them value and financial worth. We don't do that. We've chosen to walk away from that and say, well, cities are on their own. And when you do that, you end up with a Katrina problem. New Orleans is not the city it was in the past. Yet, those that are left there are the poorest. Well, those are the ones we should be taking care of first. Not only because it's the right thing to do, but more importantly, it's the smart thing to do. Because in time, that'll only become a bigger problem, which will cost us more money in public safety, in healthcare, just in quality of life, in a region that'll just spread and become worse. Even though majority of the people live in cities, in our legislature, the way it's set up, the votes in terms of delegates and representatives are from rural areas, so they're not inclined to look at cities favorably. Infrastructure is important, not only for connecting sections of cities or regions, but also it allows people to connect, whether they're going to buy products or just get to know each other. I've always felt the strength of a city is the combustion engineering that takes place inside it. People bounce off each other all day long. You see each other, you talk. You get energy from that. You do not get that when you live away, which is nothing wrong with living in rural America or living in suburbia and working in a city. But if you want the country to have energy to change and be inventive and take chances, it comes from cities. It comes from people who face challenges every day. From those challenges, they become smarter and better and more aggressive. And that's what makes America great. Gas prices aren't going down. They're going to go up. And several years from now, we'll be resembling Europe. Well, if that's the case, we should follow the lead in Europe, which is invest back in cities. Look at mass transit. People cannot make $30,000 a year in cities like Scranton or Reading or Altoona and live 20 minutes outside the city because it's eating too much of their paycheck. They're going to want to live in cities. They're going to want to walk to work. They're going to want to save money. And that comes from an investment in infrastructure, whether it's in mass transit or our water and sewage plants, whether it's just in paving the street. The rail system that we're looking at hooking up from Scranton to Hoboken could be a benefit to Scranton. I believe it is far away off. We do control the rail lines from Scranton to Hoboken between the New Jersey Transit and also Pocono Mountain, Northeast Pennsylvania Transit. But that's a lot of money. And I think what will happen is when highways are forced to expand, especially in particular Route 80, that would connect from the Poconos into the George Washington Bridge, the federal government's going to ask themselves, if I had a lane on each side, that's probably going to cost me $1 billion, $2 billion. Is it better investment to connect the rail system from Scranton to Hoboken? And that'll probably cost the same amount of money. The difference is, if I do it on the roads, those lanes are filled within months of being open. The rail system will allow people to flow in and out of the major metropolitan areas and still live in areas that they can afford to live in. What hurts us is the unfunded mandates. For instance, since Katrina, they have changed the rules and regulations for flood safety, which is all very well and good, and we appreciate that. But when the federal government comes in and says, you no longer are at the level that we feel is sufficient to give you a proper rating, that means people in that area can't get flood insurance. They raise the standards on that. Now they've forced us to spend another $500,000 or $1 million to make that happen. We really need the federal government. If you're going to change the rules, you better write a check to help us out along the way, because cities like Scranton or even larger cities do not have the funding for increased costs. And the other thing is, our citizens, although do not want to see increased flooding, are a little ticked off that I'm taking money away from other programs that they thought we're getting. And I think people realize when you look at gas prices, you look at all these other things that we're facing, the challenges, cities are coming back. And I think people are smart enough to realize we have to invest in that.